Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
Star Trek podcast.
Your whole civilization, this, it's all founded on the suffering of a child.
Can you honestly say that no child suffers for the benefit of your Federation? That no child lives in poverty or squalor, while those who enjoy abundance look away? The only difference is we don't look away. And because of that, the suffering is borne on the back of only one. It's what makes it a sacred honor. That's why I choose our way.
Okay. All right.
Let's start.
Let's start this podcast.
We're starting now.
Let's go to the syndrome. It's like this big. It's like the technodrome, but it's full of scenery.
Right?
The syndrome.
Is this just a concept you've developed just
because
now?
Instead of saying syndrome, S-Y-N, it's S-I-N, and it's a.
I understand the mechanics of the pun.
Syndrome. There would be a drone.
Like a drone.
No, is it the technodrome?
It's the technodrome.
Yes. So it would be
like
the
technodome.
So it would be the syndrome.
Yeah.
Where it's full of sinful things.
Full of symptoms.
Damn. I respect.
That would be the syndrome.
I respect that you might be having some difficulty getting aboard the Star Trek topic, given this episode features the husk of a dead child. At one point, it's pretty fucking intense.
This was a weird episode.
Yeah.
I really liked this episode.
No, it was good.
It was an upsetting.
I don't know how many times I'm going to rewatch this.
It was upsetting. However, what you're saying right there, Jesse, this episode is one, for me, the ratio of the benefit of watching it a second time was, or maybe not benefit is not the right word, but the change in perspective. It's an episode that we're watching. Okay, first let's say what's the name of the title? What's the title of the episode we're watching, Dan?
I don't know.
First of all, it wasn't just me who was preventing the episode from going forth. I believe it was all of us.
I wasn't implying that it was you.
Man.
If I was just trying to work in that whole
that was a good
reference.
segue.
I wanted to front load the episode.
You know, it was a good segue.
It's because this is difficult for us because this is a whimsical podcast.
Yes, right.
And we always have difficulty when it comes to the intensely serious episodes.
Yeah, maybe that's probably
And this episode is more unusual in that
it's called Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach.
Yes. This is the It's Got Star Trek podcast. Yeah. This is what, episode 136 probably?
I think so.
Oh my goodness.
I think so.
Coming up on 150, we have to do something crazy for 150.
Is that
let's go streaking?
And we're talking about
Centennial?
lift us up high up on the parapet. What is the name of the episode?
Parapet.
Put us all the way up. Just like heave us up on top of the building. This episode, like some TOS episodes, you're just watching it and you're like, oh, this is cool. Oh, this is interesting. I wonder what's going on here. Oh, there's some interesting characterization here. Oh my God, they killed a child.
Yeah.
And now they've doomed another child to some sort of not eternal torture because apparently they use these. We don't know how long they last, but that dead husk of a child was a child. It wasn't. Fucked up.
It was floating a city.
And after Pike was like, after that thing was over, Pike goes to Allura. He goes, "Will he suffer?" And she's like, "Yes."
Yes.
And I lulled when that happened. I was like, "Oh God."
Yeah, he was pissed.
It broke me.
They pulled no
Pike was
punches.
pissed off, man.
And
There was a moment where he was almost kind of buying it for a second because she was like, well, we face these horrific atrocities.
Yeah.
You pretend you hide them like they don't exist. And he almost for a second, it looks like he's contemplating it for a brief second.
That was no sort of argument.
But then he just immediately, his brain just kind of breaks apart. He's like, no, dude, no.
But here's the thing.
He wasn't having it.
Here's the thing. While I'm on board with you guys and I'm on board with Pike, part of why this works so well as an episode is the argument she's making is a valid argument. Valid does not mean correct because that's a relative term, right? It is valid in that it's a utilitarian argument.
Right.
It's saying it's okay to have this one person, this one child endure this because as a result, nobody else endures any sort of disease, pain or anything.
It's different if the tortured child is driving the system as opposed to if it's just a byproduct.
It seems to be like a battery or something. Yeah, but you argue it's different, and I'm not arguing that your argument is invalid.
Right.
But it's a dilemma because it's not an easy answer because some people might say, hey, if you could have just like one child get fucked up constantly instead of tens of thousands, maybe that's a fair deal.
Well, it is kind of a spin on the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, except it's a little bit more, it's trying to be more predictive about it. It's not trying to prevent like we need to make a decision this second, but it's kind of like saying, we're going to continuously put this child in pain while
actively doing
just so we can prevent some stuff from happening. And they worship, and the thing is they worship this kid, right? The first servant or whatever, but he doesn't get to like enjoy any of it. It's kind of like I don't know, like when during
when they just had like some kind of festival right before they hooked him up.
Yeah,
but it's like carousel
were they like?
I mean, you gotta wonder
when were they celebrating him? Otherwise,
yeah. So you got to wonder if they're lying about what they're actually doing to people. They seem to say
they were totally lying.
So why would this kid? I know this kid's
keeping Pike in the dark.
Does this kid? Does he just? I know he's taking one for the team, and it's considered this great honor, and they love and respect him.
Sure.
But did he not stop? And I'm not. This is not I'm not critiquing anything here. I'm just kind of wondering, like. Did he not think about what it was that he was getting into? And he didn't realize it until he saw that dead kid. Then he was like, "Oh, shit."
I think though that the audience doesn't realize it yet. Even though we know this is a story, we know something's going to happen. There's going to be some sci-fi twist or whatever. We didn't know exactly what it might be. Maybe it would center on the kid, maybe something else. But the story was not set up from the beginning to be like, "Oh, these people are going to turn out to be all like super fucked up." And to make it even more complicated, while they definitely seem to be super fucked up, their argument is not without some form of merit. You don't have to agree with it by any means, but they're not.
They have to keep all their shit floating.
Because if we take for face value,
they have rivers of lava.
What was her name? Laura or something? Laura. If we take for face value what she's describing, first of all, she says that they all know this is not something that the leaders of the town keep secret.
And she's actually putting a lot of faith in Pike, like that she's going to tell him. Like she's got to know that even if they think their system is awesome and totally the best, and the Federation sucks, she's got to know that Pike comes from such a different perspective that he would be totally horrified by it.
But let's interrogate that. Why would she? If they're a fairly isolationist group of people, why would they necessarily know that? Because that's sort of a cultural relativism where like you wouldn't necessarily.
Well, you think with all that medical doodads and technology they had, more people would have gone looking for them and taken their shit. But I guess
maybe that's why they're isolationists. Yeah. My point is saying is that you can imagine any culture, including the cultures we're embedded with, blinding us or making it difficult for us to perceive.
Look, because they didn't even want to associate with those colonists that had broken away from them.
Yeah,
but she recognized.
You're right, though, Dan. She did recognize there's something shitty about it.
Well, she recognized. Yeah, she recognized that we do it this way, you do it your way. So she had some idea that different people do it differently. So, and I'm not saying. She could think that they're wrong and terrible, but she has to sort of, maybe she just didn't seem to consider like, yeah, they might think this is kind of weird, but I don't know. Sometimes you got to rip the Band-Aid off.
Well, I'm being devil's advocate, but it's also fun to be devil's advocate because again, if we take her for face value, she recognizes that they're causing pain to somebody. They don't seem to be keen on doing that because they have, according to her, spent hundreds of years trying to research different ways to accomplish the same thing. Right. She states that it was her research she was conducting.
I don't buy it.
See, Jesse just doesn't believe her at all. I'm taking what she says for face value, and that her own research was trying to sort this out.
She seems nice enough,
and so in that context, it's like this is what works for us, and she immediately throws back at Pike this very interesting statement that has caused a bit of a scuttlebutt on the internet, where she talks about are you saying that there aren't thousands of children that are being, exploited in such a way that benefits the Federation? And, he gives a little look, and then a lot of people were like, well, actually, no, the Federation is about post-scarcity society, blah, blah, blah. 2 points on that. First of all, yes, the Federation might be quote unquote post-scarcity, but they still interact with the wider universe, and some of the benefits they may have might be in part a result of the galactopolitics.
I mean, we already have gold press latinum. I think we would have sort of established at this point that there are
haves and haves not.
Precise. And so there's that.
Yeah, right.
And secondly, the point, this is a television show, and the audience is the audience. It's not Pike, the audience, and it's not the Star Trek future people. The audience is the current world, and particularly when you're talking about industrialized nations, a lot of our stuff is due to the exploitation of children, whether they're in the U.S., China,
making
wherever. Precisely, making clothes, making cell phones, etc. Abuse, all sorts of other terrible things. We told you this was a whimsical podcast that we like to do each week.
It's not so whimsical.
But that's the message of this show, the pointed message of the show. They have that philosophical conundrum that's fun to play around with, but undergirding it is this idea saying like, hey, you guys are cool with exploiting children to have your cell phones and internet and stuff like that, and cheap t-shirts and not so cheap sneakers. So why can't we be okay with it when they have replicators? We've only got the one kid that we're exploiting, and as a result, nobody has any disease, and everyone's happy, and the cities float around in the sky.
It's floating. Everything's floating.
That's something about that whole opening scene where they flew over the city. It reminded me of like the end of when they redid the end of New Hope. Star Wars,
flying through like
Coruscant. It was not a New Hope. I'm sorry. It was Return of the Jedi.
You mean Star Wars, because Star Wars was originally called Star Wars and not Star Wars: A New Hope.
I know there's apparently no original theatrical release available.
I thought it like the music sounded all like it was like some kind of video game.
I was just saying about apparently there's no theatrical release you can get your hands on with Star Wars. You
can get the despecialized edition.
Yes, you can get the despecialized edition, but I'm talking about even before like remaster, like the version that we had when we were kids wasn't really the exact theatrical release version. It was basically the same. Apparently it kept changing from my understanding. I could be wrong, but I was thinking the music was interesting when they were flying over that thing. It reminded me of some kind of like beach kind of scene or something, future beach scene that they were trying to. I don't know. But I
think one thing there's
like a Caribbean kind of music.
Yeah, something like that.
It was sort of victory over the Empire, Coruscant firework party music a little bit, Ewok music.
It's neat to look at, but that's all about it was. It's all about. Oh my god,
That's all about it was.
That's
guys.
about all it was. It was
I hate to tell you, that's all about it was.
It was just one of those places that you just kind of don't ask too many questions about why it is what it is, I guess. But
The production value, as always,
at least in
the show was really high. I do think this is because of the dilemma it causes in people's minds. I think it will become one of those sort of instant classic episodes. Because it's sort of wrestling with some interesting concepts. But that being said, one thing that was a little weak for me was I don't think they got across enough visually or in the exposition the fact that this city was floating high above lava lakes.
They did.
Exactly.
When she was talking about lava flows on the surface, I was like, "What do you?"
When you watch it the second time, the second time, if you're looking for it in between,
if you look at it from space, it looks kind of fucked up.
And when they're like running over that green lawn where it looks like clearly what they did, it looks good, but what they did is that they just put some green screen material on the lawns and had people run around on the paths, and it looked cool, but you had to kind of squint your eyes to see the lava lakes below it.
Yeah, I didn't notice it. I keep forgetting about that line. She kept talking to Pike about how the sky would start falling if the first servant didn't ascend.
Yeah.
It made her and her people seem like they worshiped some god and that they needed to sacrifice to this god, which essentially in a way they did, but there's sort of an interesting spin given on it because it's like they're not just sacrificing this child to this monster, they're giving it to sort of the technology monster. So the
technology monster.
So because this whole idea that computers
feel in like repulsor lives.
It's an interesting idea, sort of like computers are missing an inherent human quality kind of situation, right? It's like, it's got all the smarts in the world, but does it have the drive and the neural, it needs to train itself on the human's neural network or whatever.
Child's brain.
A child's
And so
neural
they
network.
essentially, what they did is they made like a giant, that whole room was like a giant, like, it was like a super RoboCop. It was a giant cyborg. It was just this weird, it was an interesting misdirect because I was thinking they were I was like, at that point I was like, they have all this crazy technology and they believe that these gods are going to strike them down. And then I thought that was kind of an interesting,
It was effective too, because that's also where I thought things were going to go, is that
from
whatever
the
the
sky.
drama was going to be in some conflict related to their waggy beliefs or whatever. And,
I mean, they were talking about this kid, but the other thing is they talk about this kid as if he's like the chosen one,
Yes.
Like
he's Neo from the Matrix.
So it's kind of like they have had this technology so
Or
long.
Jesus from the Bible.
It's like they have had this technology so long that
Or Anakin Skywalker.
So he's like a really good battery.
No, it's not a battery. It's not just energy. It's meant to train their neural networks. It's for their mind power, the motivations and consciousness of a human as applied to a machine. And that's apparently how
So
I took
somehow
it.
he's driving the Jenks.
And that's what makes the flux capacitor possible.
Because if you want to take
That's what makes time travel possible.
If you want to take
I gotta get the quote right.
If you want to take the stance of we're just sort of meat computers that are exactly like a computer, except that's a whole argument we don't need to get into. But I think
computers.
But I think that this was taking a different stance of like, no, there's an inherent difference between humanity and technology, and humanity can make decisions.
Those people aren't humans.
They were saying
Computermanity.
They were saying humanity can make sort of decisions that and have impulses and stuff that computers.
Those are like Majallisons or something.
So you're reading a lot more into it. I'm liking everything you're saying. I just didn't see any of that in the text. What I saw in the text
none
was...
of it was in the text. This is all conjecture.
Oh, okay, because I was just like in like I'm just seeing is like the keeping the cities floating is requires a lot of processing power or something. Which okay, okay, I'll take it as a Star Trek thing.
Let me just say it. I'm totally jumping to my own fun conclusions. But that's what I took from it.
Because
why would they? That's the only reason I can think.
Because last week you said you were going to order one of those jump to conclusions mats.
No, I didn't say that last week.
Did that come in the mail?
No, can you think of any other reason they would need a human child to power a giant robot machine other than its consciousness? Like, what other reason could there be?
I mean, so it's one of those narrative things where I can simultaneously accept the concept. Like, in principle, I can accept the concept. You need a consciousness and you need a malleable brain.
It's a very positive
accept
way
that.
of
That
thinking.
makes sense.
It's just a fun thing to muse
But
about.
it's the interconnecting steps of, okay, the floating city is going to fall down. I understand. I can imagine an abstract amorphous like I just can't imagine the bridge between them. I agree. I agree that it can exist.
No, it's a good point. Like, why could the things not just kind of stay there?
Do they have like little hovery things, and it just takes like a lot of brain power to be like, whoa?
No, that's true. It would seem like they could just hover like on autopilot without the need of a child's brain.
How did those people evolve on that planet?
I don't know.
This was discussed online where people were suggesting that probably they came to the planet, like whoever the founders were, came to the planet from elsewhere.
Yeah,
because it was a pulsar.
It must have been.
It's got to be rough to be trying to grow up around a pulsar, doing some evolving and shit.
How do you grow up around a pulsar?
It's got all the radiation and shit.
So, anyways, they treated the child like a chosen one, so that's kind of the spiritual religious aspect. So it's like it's both religion and science. The adherence to religion and science run amok on
absolutely.
And then but then there's also hints of the testament to like laziness in general, which you kind of touched on, Patrick, where it's not wanting to give up on your current luxuries and medical and science stuff.
Is there anything more lazy than a lazy Susan?
So like basically saying they don't want to give up their stuff because they don't want to give up all their cool shit, basically. So they could totally like do what those people on Parvius 7 or Prospect 7.
Parsnip 7.
Prospect 7. They could have done that, but
Prospect 7 is such a cool name for a planet or planetoid or whatever.
Yeah,
it was.
why is that the shit?
Prospect 7.
Well, that's because they left because they didn't want to be a part of this bullshit. And so why don't they?
They're like, those guys is assholes.
So she says
they're making child husks.
a lava planet.
Alora's saying that she looked for all this like shit alternatives to make it run without a child.
No,
but
they didn't.
But yeah, she didn't try.
Jesse on the face of his like, no, they're lying.
No, it's because
I could tell how she said it.
No, she sounds like she didn't, because why not in the meantime they go live on Prospect 7?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Prospect 7, you don't have to like hook a child up to like a murder.
But you just don't, and that's what they don't want to give up all their cool
exactly,
shit.
because both things are true.
But
they can't figure out. They want to solve the problem so they don't need to eat up children,
but they
also don't want to get rid of their shit.
Yeah,
and I'd say that's true of most of us.
No, and exactly,
right?
rule precisely. That's why
it's really horrible that they make the iPhone from the little children's hands. Click, click, click. Yeah, Twitter, TikTok. Twitter, TikTok.
It totally remind me of the idea how I think I was talking to someone and I was talking about Star Trek. He didn't really watch Star Trek, but he knew. He grew up like when the original series was on. So
you've mentioned this fella before.
Oh yeah, I mentioned
He's
him before.
Old.
Yeah, basically saying like he didn't know much about Star Trek, but he did know that they comment on social issues. He's like,
didn't know much about that Star Trek.
But he's like, weren't they known for commenting on social issues? And so it seemed like this was.
Did he take his baseball cap off?
That's astute.
And like sort of look off into the distance and scratch his head, being like, "But they talk about them social issues." with his hand in
Did
the
he
crook
watch
of his
like
hip- of his hip.
Bonanza instead? Like,
No. Anyways. This episode made me think of that.
Yeah, I want to meet that guy.
As opposed to like a giant.
Who is this?
Well, anyway, I'm not gonna go.
No, the point you're making is a very good point. That Strange New Worlds, one of the things that has going for it is these social issues stories that are self-contained, right? It's not Discovery Picard. They're doing stuff like that too, but it's stretched out over a whole season and with more or less effect as a result.
So there was another part in the text that made me think of how it relates to today, and they took the concept of technology today and kind of applied it. They talk about how it powers the neural network.
Yeah.
That's like a thing people talk about a lot now. So that's also why I thought maybe the child they trained the brain on the child because of that's how neural
extra smart.
Trained the brain.
Yeah, because that's what trained the brain. Neural networks train on data sets, and it tries to pretend it's a brain, and so. If you and it does through it by experience and repetition, all sorts of stuff. Anyway, so that's why they took the child so they could get a super complex, awesome. I don't know. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But
makes sense to me.
But yes, this is a good episode to remember. The only thing is that the middle of it got a little wishy-washy. Like, what was the whole the oath coin? Like, it seemed like that didn't really
make sense.
Didn't really go anywhere, and they didn't that whole. Fakir. I mean, I didn't really know what that contributed to.
Would you say the Fakir?
The Fakir. No, it was cool. It was cool that fight was cool, but the
fight was cool.
But that's about all there was.
Star Trek fight.
Oh, Pike totally like fucking tackled.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, but again,
but it's like other than that, I don't know why that.
Even though I actually like this because it is sort of old school Star Trek style, like TOS style. That fight was good because just like on TOS. The initial parts of the fight are all super like intense and good, but then like inexplicably the guy who has like some sort of like vaporizing laser Pike, like when Pike just runs up and the guy just sort of is like, and Pike just tackles him. It's like, why didn't you managed to like beat the shit out of all these other like highly trained dudes who were armed.
He like jumps on top of it. and, like knocks him.
It was funny. I did the coin thing didn't make any sense, right? And you can write in and let us know on Twitter or whatever if we're missing something. But
I thought it was going to be. So I actually thought it was going to be somehow related to Gamal or Laura. Somehow it's like, they planted it or something. They didn't. That does not what ended up happening
because she found a coin that was scratched up, and she's like, okay, that means one of my guards was involved here.
Yeah. I thought that was going to be a misdirect at first, but it wasn't.
Well, then, so like when they're looking at the guards, was she trying to see if one of them was missing a coin?
That's what I thought.
But the guy wasn't missing the coin.
He just had a damaged one.
But then when you look at it, I was watching in 4K, and I was like, I don't see the damage.
Yeah, right.
I don't see where it's damaged. And then like I'm just not clear. Is like, was that other coin a different guard who is now gone because he went with those people? Yeah. But like, do they not know from the roster that a guard disappeared?
It was needlessly confusing.
And then she was Laura was like, why were you on that ship? Implying that guy was on that ship. Which ship? The ship that crashed and everyone died? Or did they not die and they beamed away? Because I think they said something about them like maybe beaming away. Because, they didn't find any bodies or anything. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm not one to nitpick. It's just like sometimes that just didn't track for me. Because I was like, I don't understand how you're coming to these conclusions. It worked in the end. So whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, it didn't. Like I said, I thought the coin was going to be some kind of misdirect, and I'm not saying that my way is any better or worse. But the impression I got is like, okay, they're going to trick us. Somebody planted this. This is going to be a big sneaky thing, but it wasn't. It was no planting. It was just very obvious, but it didn't really. Yeah, it didn't lead to anything.
It was just another portion of the story to truck along until we got to the husk of a dead child.
Yeah, that was exciting, wasn't it?
A horrifying, sunken-eyed.
It looked
corpse.
looked like an alien.
and
It
that-
looked more alien than those fucking.
And when we get to see, look, that promising and adorable kid is
Yes.
going to be that.
Who's like this great actor? He's 12 years old.
It's pretty good, yeah.
He was very good, very charming. But all right, let's take a quick break, and then when we get back, we'll continue discussing Lift Us Up to Where We Belong. Is
Lift
that what-
us up to where we've gone, and never
we'll talk about that episode. This is the It's Got Star Trek podcast, and guess what? We'll be right back. All right, we're back. First order of business.
Look at.
Where the fuck is Hammer? This is the second episode in a row, right? Where we haven't seen Hammer?
Yeah, I
That's
noticed
true.
that this episode. Wait, the last episode?
I don't
didn't
think he
have
was
it?
The
in the
role of
last-
Hammer was
he
replaced
was in that one.
by La'an.
What did he play? What did he do in the last? I don't think he was in the last episode. And Spock Amok?
Spock him out. I don't
Maybe
think he was.
wasn't in
I don't think he was in it at all.
Oh shit!
You know? I mean, I know you can't have every character all the time, but
So,
yeah, come on,
with-
two in a row. And he was also not really in the first episode either.
I noted that when
This one had like Mr. Kyle and like
Mr. Kyle.
I
he's so
noted-
a little bit
mean.
of Una.
I noted that when the relationship
Kirk's
between
brother.
the relationship
a
between
little bit of Kirk's
the
brother.
relationship between Lon and Uhura kind of mirrored that of Uhura and Hemmer from back in the
Yeah,
Bay, because
yeah.
like Uhura's like
back in the bay. Like
When-
instead of back in the day, it's
Right.
back in the bay
Yeah.
because they were in the cargo bay. I like that.
So no, Uhura says, "You asked for a needle in a haystack, and I found it. I translated their dialect, cross-check, blah, 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 blah." And Lon goes, "So, you did the bare minimum I asked for." And that's the same thing Hemmer did to her when he was like, "What's this techno doodad?" And she's like, "It's a Mondo filter." And he was like, "Cadets never read shit." And like, she's like, "Oh yeah?" And then she was like,
like,
"Bah, bah,
no,
bah,
I
bah,
didn't.
bah, bah,
Flippity
bah, bah."
floppity flippity flu.
And so this is
Yeah.
2 times now that
Which filters the air?
Now this is 2 times that Uhura has been underestimated, because Lon basically did the
Yeah.
same thing that Hemmer
Yeah.
did, and she was like, "No, actually, I did a bunch more shit too. I solved your problem for you."
See,
motherfucker.
everybody that works on the Enterprise, they work on the Enterprise, so they think they're hot shit because they probably are hot shit.
Yeah,
So, when some cadet comes along and the cadet seems promising, they're gonna give her a hard time.
Does anybody know the etymology of the term hot shit? Because aren't most shits, I mean, at the very minimum, quite warm?
It depends on what you eat.
Well,
Is that the good thing?
Well, if your shit is hot, then it's more pungent. A cold shit doesn't have much effect. It's quite impotent. So when you're hot shit,
okay.
when you're hot shit, you're putting off a big stink.
So you don't want any of that freeze-dried feces like they use in fecal transplants?
Thai food.
Yes.
What?
What?
You'll get a hot shit if you eat Thai food?
Sometimes.
'Cause of
Depends
the
on what you
spiciness?
get. Yeah, if you get the spice.
Yeah. Well, sorry for the... I was just curious about that. And I was,
A little bit
so-
graphic.
just trying to add in a little whimsy given the whole, dead child thing.
Dead
Yeah.
husk of
You know,
an
and that-
alien
and that
child.
kid-
Withered,
The
veiny.
first servant, he was all
Misshapen
he was all
skull.
he was all worshipped, and everyone's like, "You're so great, and you're so great." But that's essentially like sending somebody to work in a pandemic and then calling them heroes, but not like, as we know, kind of
It's not
happened.
unusual. I would imagine, I don't know enough about it to know for sure, but, in cultures that practiced human sacrifice, I'm sure sometimes it was involuntary, but probably sometimes it was very similar to this, just without the hooking the kid into a
Yeah.
machine thing. Just,
The whole thing seems I mean, I guess you're right.
it's an analogous. to
Pagan
that.
But
religious
those-
practices are like
at least-
based on like the society. Together.
Okay, at least, but here's the difference. At least in those, they die immediately. This kid may have had a great life up to this point, but he's going to have 3 or 4 times as much time.
Counterpoint.
Like being
in those
miserable.
in those sacrificing the child did not actually appease the gods to bring them good grain. Now, it could have given them hope and motivation that helped accomplish that. Whereas in this case, what we taking it at face value,
it worked some of the time. That's what they kept doing it.
well, you know what I mean. Not really working. But in this case, it actually works. Like in this case, Again,
it totally works.
Again, if they're telling the truth, they put
jacked
the
them
kid
right
in, and it keeps the
yeah.
cities floating
Look,
and all the magic.
I'm
working.
just I'm saying like I was making the analogy with about sending people to work in the pandemic and then calling them heroes. It's like it's like you're saying this thing about them, but you're not following through with it. You're saying just because I walk up.
Because we really need 7-Eleven to be open. During a global pandemic.
And then
where the fuck else am I going to get combos?
Where am I going to get cashews?
Basically, walking up to someone and saying, "You're great. We love you. We think you're super cool. You have our love, but
you might die."
Yeah. So, but
because I need a Slurpee,
and we're not going to do anything to like make it like a little better for you.
No, in fact, we're going to make it much more difficult for you.
Yeah.
Barbecue banana chips. I want those barbecue banana chips.
Yeah.
So these people doing this noble, wonderful, amazing thing, and then just basically getting, whatever.
But we do have the benefit of not only seeing Pike have another romantic interlude, but having Pike's romantic interlude.
He was stumbling with he couldn't remember his
because he's adorable.
Name.
Because Anson Mount is just adorable.
I mean, I was surprised.
It was super adorable.
I was surprised he lost his words that much.
Yeah, he totally lost.
Forgot
it.
Una's name for a second.
Una was like, "This is totally adorable."
Yeah.
Like, everybody was like, "Oh man!"
But another hallmark of a contemporaneous or contemporary Star Trek is the lack
contemporarily.
I was going to say the general lack.
I'm General Lack
of the male gaze.
I'm Admiral Lack.
And in fact, we get in a lot of ways the antithesis of the male gaze in this episode. I didn't unfortunately look up who directed it. I couldn't tell you what their sexual identification is.
Donnie Billingsworth.
That was not. I know it. I don't know the name of the person, but I know for a fact that it's not Donnie Billingsworth.
You sure?
No one is named Donnie.
I knew
Billingsworth.
Donnie Billingsworth. I worked with Donnie Billingsworth, and you, sir, know Donnie Billingsworth.
Joe Jr. Shabadoo.
Yeah, that's like a 1960s. All the TOS directors were all called like Chuck Tannen or something like that. Something along those lines.
Joey Billingsworth.
Man, you're throwing me off my whole
Donnie Billingsworth.
Throwing me off my whole
Maybe
business.
Joey's better.
You're the one that's beckoning him.
The male gaze.
That's how it feels.
Yes, the male gaze.
That's how it
I know,
feels.
and I love it. I like it. That's why I do it to you, because it's fun and it's sort of it's vivacious.
It's vivacious.
It's vivacious.
I do agree. It is vivacious.
It adds a little flair. It
Yeah.
makes discussing an episode involving the dead husk of a child with the eyes bulging out, just dead
man.
glassy eyes bulging out, and Pike pulling the blanket back in before you even see the dead child. You see Pike's expression, and he looked so fucking horrified.
It was in a box off to the side.
They were just like carting him off.
And you get to see the kid like realize what he's about to go through.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, right.
Yeah, oh my.
And then you get, of course, to see all the things go into it, and you see the moment he sort of changes consciousness.
I had to, after like my second two viewings of that episode, I had to like.
Wait, second two viewings?
Second two?
Wait, what?
Did
you watch the episode 4 times?
My next two.
Did you watch the episode 4 times?
I watched it 3
Wait, that
times.
doesn't help.
That
The
was
next 2
confusing.
times.
That was an amazing sentence. You made a sentence that I can't parse it. It's so weird.
It was like a Larry King style. By the way, something. What do you care?
I'm sorry.
No,
Let's
that was
start back.
amazing.
Let's start over.
That was awesome.
No, this is
That was
fun.
impressive.
We like this.
I
Is
was impressed.
art with words.
Yes.
Art with words.
Art words.
The male gaze.
Let's take a break.
The male gaze. No, we don't get to take another break yet. We got like another 10-15 minutes before the next scheduled break. We can put in all them commercials, sprinkle in all them money-making commercials. The male gaze has been an issue throughout all of cinema and television, everything like that, including Star Trek. Particularly egregious, weirdly enough, on Enterprise, which was a later show. So something people are so used to, in fact, that you don't necessarily notice it, right? It's just sort of natural to you, particularly if you identify as male and are sort of raised culturally male in that way.
I think that's us.
A lot of modern shows have been doing a really good job of moving away from that eliminating the male gaze, as in like the low camera angle shot of like the butt of some sexy lady.
That's not new Star Trek.
Zooming in just on some boobs and then slowly panning up to the face, but then like, I don't give a fuck about the face. You just show the face for a second just to show she's got one, and then you can move away.
I mean,
quick edit away from the face, but linger on the boobs.
When people direct shots like that, I mean, are they fooling themselves into thinking that it's it's a beautiful, well-respected shot or something, or do they? Are in their head? Are they straight up just like? Are they in their head? Or are they just straight up like this is great.
It's capital.
Go slowly up the body.
The point I'm making is, do they think they're making a noble shot, or do they admit to themselves that, or do they even realize
they don't let us show the belly button, but we can show the boobs?
Do you realize when you're making those shots? Are you in your head secretly going, sex sells?
This is good.
This is a bummer.
This is just this is an everyday normal shot.
No one's going to answer my question.
Yeah, no, I know what I'm doing.
This is a bummer topic.
I know what I'm doing. I'm just the camera's moving slowly.
So do you have an opinion, Patrick? Jesse has no opinion.
Get a big old shot of her boobs. Do you know why widescreen television was invented?
You didn't answer my question.
Because of boobs. Because of male gaze. Because you want to have the boobs all wide on the screen.
I know, but when you're actually making those shots, are you purposely catering to the male gaze,
Yes.
or do you realize you're doing it?
Both.
Yes.
In some cases, it's just innate, but it still has that effect of catering,
It's
because
subconsciously
when
and consciously.
you have male creators and male producers and male writers writing for a male audience because that's who they care about, then that is what you get. You get the male gaze.
We're right, I know, but a part of it is like
you said but.
Like some people are more aware that they're doing it than others, though.
Yeah, some people. So here's the thing: when some people are like, "This is like, all right, well, we're gonna start low and then pan the camera up to her face, and then she says, "How you doing, Jim?" That guy maybe doesn't know it, but he's doing the same thing. But then you get the other guy who's all like, "Yeah, just start down by her waist." And it's just
you're doing this voice again.
Just slowly. No, that's too quick. You don't want to get to the boobs too quick.
Oh, man.
It's got to be a surprise. Just keep moving up. That guy, he knows what he's doing. But we don't have to deal with that as much these days because those guys have been fired or are old and dead, or are young
old
and making television programs that we don't. We're
not going to watch those shows.
Yeah, we don't watch those shows, or tend not to watch those shows.
Watch them.
I'm not even going to watch them.
And this has been a long, albeit fun, way around of getting to this scene with Pike and Allura after they've
had sex,
made the Sailot with two backs.
Salots are furry.
Yeah, they are.
What is that?
You got a problem with that?
No, I'm just saying.
What is this word you're saying?
Sailot. That's the Spock's bear dog thing.
Bear dog.
Oh.
So instead of the beast with two backs, the Sailot with two backs.
He's making a Shakespeare.
What was its name?
It's a portmanteau of Shakespeare and Spock. Sailot. Where do you keep? What?
I don't know why I don't like that word portmanteau.
The name of his Sailot
is it Ichaya?
It's
Ichaya.
Bogle.
No, it's not Don Billingsley.
Do you say boogeyman or bogeyman?
Boogeyman.
I don't say bogey.
Sometimes it's spelled bogeyman.
Well, that's if it's British. British people call boogers bogies.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, we call bogies airplanes we want to like
blow up.
Enemy airplanes.
I know that because of Top Gun.
Okay, all right. But because now we're starting to get near our next break, and we still have to get to this this point, which I think most of the audience has already, they've extrapolated this.
What have they done
based off of the conversation?
What have they done? They've extrapolated the point that I'm making for you tonight. What
when Pike and Allura are hanging out in bed, Pike is the one who is in the position that in the olden days would be the female position, where he's all cozy.
I didn't even think about that.
He's being sensitive. She's sitting up, and he's like basically lying in her lap. She's stroking him, and what's good about this is that they've juxtaposed the masculine and feminine roles, but not completely. She is not acting particularly masculine. He's not acting particularly feminine, but they're showing that you can switch the roles without relinquishing whatever your identity is, right? But I really liked the framing of that scene.
When you step on Link from after he's already been stepped on, are you from Legend of Zelda? When you step on him,
what do you mean?
After he's already been stepped on,
I don't understand.
Are you re-linked?
I don't understand that. Wait, before you get to the punchline, the setup has to make sense. What do you mean by stepping on Link? Because you are Link in the game.
Yeah.
You might step on other things, but you can't step on Link.
If you were a giant and you stepped on Link, after he already...
I understand this hypothetical, but this is just to clarify, just so that the full
Isn't
context
Link like
of
a
this,
little dude anyway? So
I want the
everybody's a giant.
punchline to be within the context of
is.
what we had. So
If
this is
you're
a hypothetical situation.
If you're a giant,
not something that happened in the real game.
If you're a giant and Link, and you see watch somebody step on Link, and you're like, I'm gonna go step on Link. So Link gets stepped on, and then he stands up, and then you step on him again. Are you relinquishing him? Are you squishing him?
All right. Well, it was worth it. I will give you that. It was worth it in the end. That was relink squish. I mean, I don't know how that's going to play with the audience, but for me personally, that was really good.
Well, thank you,
really good.
Thank you for making me clarify, because I wanted to make sure people got what I was
That's
saying.
one of those examples of Dan was doing a joke for Patrick at the expense of the program.
He was relink squishing him.
Good. I mean, I do expect again that this is a psychological response to the fact that we have to discuss an episode, not just with the husk of a dying of a dead child and a new child that's all fresh and sprightly who is soon to be a husk, but also Dr. Mbenga's daughter who gets a brief moment of joy playing with this kid who is future zombie
kid. Little did we know was the last fun thing that kid ever got to do.
Yes, and hopefully not the last fun thing that Dr. Mbenga's daughter gets to do.
And she keeps like fading in and out. She's like on a timer.
Yeah, with the transporter. She got to go back in the buffer.
I never even thought about that when she was like, you read the same chapter twice. I was like, how do you do that? And then I was like, oh, because like it's immediate to her, instantaneous
He's busy,
to her.
and he can't keep track
I know.
of it.
I didn't put together that it's like when she blips out, it's like immediately back in again. It just didn't register.
What's funny is from the
perspective
perspective of a parent, and I don't know if this was done on purpose as a joke or not. I kind of feel like it was, but from the perspective of a parent, the added joke, the meta joke is you don't need the transporter to have that exact same thing happen. Where your kid will be like, you read this to me already. I was like, oh my God, I had so much to do today. I had to direct this film that involved the male gaze.
The male gaze. What if the first servant he brought back
who's he?
Rukia? Is it Rukia?
Was that the father of the child?
The Rukia is the daughter.
Rufio?
No, that's from
Hook.
That's from Rufio.
Rufio.
No,
Rufio.
Rufio. It's like, I can't remember. It's Rukia or Rukia. And that's Mbenga's daughter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then the first servant brought her back. What if that was pretty impulsive, because what if he brought her back and she just like exploded? Like he didn't know what kind of sickness she had.
He seemed like a pretty clever kid, and plus he's a kid.
And he used up some of her time, which was worth it, I'm sure. It was worth having a little fun, but that was pretty presumptuous on his part.
And that dude was, of course,
he didn't know what to do.
He was a little kid.
He was fiddling around with all them noble gases.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those noble gases.
Yeah, Mbenga
I
was
like the reds and the blues.
Mbenga's expression that whole scene was interesting, because you could tell he was like,
he was happy,
but he was also kind of like nervous and annoyed, a little bit annoyed.
He was a parent. He was doing the whole parent thing, where it's like he's seeing his daughter have fun. He understands, because he's not dumb, that there is some value in that. He probably feels emotional about the fact that he's in a happy sense that she's able to have fun, while simultaneously feeling negative emotions and sadness at the fact that she does not regularly get to have fun and may never have fun again because she has a terrible disease and may die. She might be the third dead child on this single episode.
It seems like he wanted to yell at that kid, but he knew better than to do that or something.
I really was impressed with that acting job, because it was ambiguous as to his feelings, but not like just flatline ambiguous. It was like from moment to moment. It was like he was making different little facial movements and eye movements and stuff, where it was he did that. There was like pain and joy and everything all wrestling in his face in just the span of a few seconds.
When Gamal like hands him that pad at the end, talking about this isn't a cure, but it's step one. You can see like he give this sigh. Mbenga gives this sigh of relief. That was another, like, you're talking about expressions. I thought that was like a really subtle, but it showed like how like like that would really affected him.
And the archetype in that, it's a fairly standard character archetype, which is true of most characters in all literature, not just Star Trek. But the Mbenga character archetype that they've set up is the person who has some measure of power and wisdom, but it is insufficient to save the person he loves, right? You see this in a number of stories. It could be a spouse, a partner, a family member, a child, very commonly a child. And so the storyline is sort of a standard, but it plugs in really nicely here because...
Like that first child got plugged into that computer so he could give the rest of his life.
Yeah. Very similar to that. Yeah. I keep trying not to remember that scene because it's like the
well,
dead...
you brought it up like the dead...
I know. Well, no, the dead child was horrifying enough, but I would argue to me the more horrifying thing was when the kid is scared and then the things go in and then he turns into zombie mode.
You're bringing up the dead child so you don't have to think about the kid turning into
right. That's right. I keep accusing you of psychological defense to not wanting to think of the visage of the dead husk child. And in fact, me talking about the dead child...
The worst part is the others.
To stop me from thinking about like the sadness.
It was pretty sad. And at the end, you just see Pike standing there looking out the window.
Oh, I wanted to read this because, I was checking out Memory Alpha. And, Memory Alpha has their summaries and stuff like that. And they go through act by act. Yeah, Memory Alpha. That's we should start.
Memory Alfalfa?
If that doesn't exist, we should start that.
That
Just
could be
like a wiki site just for Alfalfa. But anyway, in Memory Alpha, it goes through the whole thing. There's a whole plot and there's act 1, blah, 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 blah. And then at the very end, the very last paragraph is, in his quarters, Pike has poured himself a drink as he stares out the viewport at Majalis. His expression haunted.
Oh, man.
I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, that hit the nail right on the head.
Well, the music is all like, it's like end of episode music, but it still has like this sinister kind of like,
things are fucked. And when the kid's getting sucked dry over the course of years, when he's about to begin that journey, they all start like inside the giant RoboCop thing. Cyborg, the music turns all horror music style with the violins like, it's all freaky.
Dissonant and screechy.
Do you think it's worse than being digested by a sarlacc, being stuck in that? I bet it is, because sarlacc you probably die, after a few days.
See,
it's thousands of years.
Yeah, but I mean, you couldn't. How are you going to stay alive for thousands of years?
Come on.
I was going to say,
are you going to? If you jump into sarlacc, does that mean you're going to stay alive for 1,000 more years?
I'm going to live forever.
Okay, so you'll lose. You'll no longer live forever.
So you'll just be melted forever.
You'll no longer live forever. You'll just live 1,000 years if you
just
go into
1,000.
Just 1,000 years. All right. How about we take another break and then conclude the episode discussion
about the dead children?
Yes, the episode that is predominantly the fulcrum of the episode centers around not only dead children who prior to being dead were tortured.
Yeah.
Just tortured for years, presumably.
So everybody could like have some floaty shit.
Yeah, the floating cities above the lava.
That is really horrifying to think about. This,
really is.
This mental jail. Like,
yeah.
Oh.
All right, we'll be right back and
That's
we'll talk
so
more
horrible.
about the dead people.
God.
All right, we have returned to the It's Got Star Trek podcast. That's the podcast you're listening to right now. Tell your friends.
What was the the whole premise is he'd seen her 10 years earlier, something about a pulsar. Do we know?
Well, we know the
back when he was
the planet was orbiting around a pulsar. So there's a pulsar in the background. Like in that last scene with Pike mournfully looking out the window, you see the pulsar being all like blah, blah, blah,
the only way you can have a planet orbiting around a pulsar is if you hook up a kid.
Yeah. That's a real takeaway.
Or if the Federation's like, you know what, this is pretty cool, and like all the warp cores are powered by babies.
They're never gonna get to join the Federation.
So it only works with Tellarite babies for some reason.
Whether they like to or not, the Federation's not taking these people.
I mean, they no, they can't take the babies.
No.
Well, they at the beginning of the episode they presented the backstory of this place as if it was something that we should know about, but it's not. They just kind of made it up.
We don't know about it.
I don't know.
And Pike himself mentioned that they probably would have not even met the Federation if he hadn't been around to help the rescue mission for the shuttle.
Is it the fucking like Beta Quadrant or something?
I don't know. They didn't specify.
No, they didn't.
They did have another ridiculous and meaningless star date.
Yeah,
which was great.
That's fine.
People online have just given up. They've just been like blah 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 because
it's clear
1943.7. It's clearly they're just joking around, having a fun time with it now.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually thought that there was something off about Gamal and Alora from the start.
Yeah.
Like, and I wasn't sure who was
Yeah,
what, but
right.
it started
Well,
kind
it's a
of.
Star Trek episode. Something's going to go on.
Well, yeah, it's true. But it seemed like at first when he came on the ship, when he came on the ship, he seemed like.
Why do you listen to yourself?
No, I don't.
You should record yourself.
Oh man, I
Listen
should
back.
one day. He seemed like kind of an asshole because he was like, he's only my son in the biological
He
sense,
was so
you know.
cranky the whole time.
And so it seemed like he was a distant, grumpy asshole, but really he was just trying to distance himself from his son because it bummed him out too much.
Yeah, of course.
And so
And he's
like,
playing the role too.
Absolutely.
The impression I got is he's like, okay, I've got to play the role. This is what my culture says. I'm supposed to act like this because this kid's the magic battery computer machine. Simon Says.
And they were doing that whole. Yeah, they were doing that
Put
whole.
the Simon Says in the machine. Maybe that's how you solve the problem. You just put like one of
Put
the.
a
You put it.
Simon Says?
You put like a. What was that? The reading one where you put in the
Speak and spell.
speak and spell. Yeah, put a
No,
speak
you
and spell
just
in
have
there.
to give him an impossible question like, if up is down, then how do you eat a pizza or
But
something
then-
like that.
But then their planet just shatters from the core.
Right.
It
But
implodes on itself.
he was doing the whole like condescending gag where he's like, please keep that butcher's knife away from
Yes.
the first servant. And then he's like, it's either in Bengo or Chapel or like, Dave, he has quantum bioimplants. We didn't see that. And he's like, that's not surprising considering the state of your abattoir.
Yeah, which
Abattoir.
that to me felt like a reference to Star Trek 4 to when McCoy was back in, what is this, the Dark Ages, because they were doing surgery on like brain
An
surgery on
abattoir
people.
is like a butchery.
Yes, it's a
But
butchery. Where
then-
you
but-
usually have like sluices where all the blood goes in, the blood in chunks goes into the sluice. They go through
Dr.
the sluices
Sluice.
to get shunted away. Dr. Sluice.
Then
Now that sounds like a cool story. Like a story.
I'll make it
That's
for
a
you.
wicked storyline.
So when Mbenga asks him, Gamal, he's like, can I ask you a hypothetical, doctor to doctor? And Gamal gave this kind of like,
Doctor to Doctor sounds like another great idea for a TV sitcom.
yeah, it does. He kind of gave this short answer, but it's actually probably the proper response. He's like, when Mbenga's like, can I ask you a question? He's like, no one's stopping you. It's like kind of like a snarky response, but at the same time,
Yeah,
it's like,
I
what do you
like
mean
that.
I can't ask you?
He
Of
was
course
a-
you can ask
I
me.
mean,
a
he
question.
was
He's
an
a
asshole.
doctor.
He's
Yeah.
He's a doctor.
But
He's a
it-
doctor and from a super advanced
But it's
society.
but it's a good point. It's like no one's stopping you from asking me a question. Anyway, but right. They always like that though. It's always the alien race that's always like, I mean, it's all about empathy and trying to give us an understanding of other people's point of views because those aliens are supposed to be us, and we're supposed to see that. But that was the first time this guy showed some empathy is when Mbenga was basically saying, hey, you can like do some shit to help this person I know. And it seemed like kind of apparent that they weren't going to help him. Yeah. And he even says so much, but you could tell Gamal, even though he's like, we can't do that. At the end, he was like, maybe one day. So that was like the first moment you got a clue that Gamal was sort
specifically
of like,
what
something there was something nice. There was something good about Gamal that you felt.
And specifically what he said, maybe one day an alliance between our peoples will bring benefits to both or something along those lines. And the look in his eyes, again, you notice all these things that take on a different meaning on the second watch through, right? Because on the first watch through, it's like, okay, maybe he's just placating Mbenga or whatever. On the second watch through, the look in his eyes was like, I fucking hope that you guys can help us because there's some fucked up shit going on that I'm not going to tell you about.
I felt there was something going on, and I just couldn't figure out who was like the bad person, not the bad guy, but you know what I mean. Who is the antagonist, the supposed represented the antagonistic theme of the show. But I couldn't know because you didn't know if it was Gamal or Alora. Maybe to some people it was really obvious.
And they sort of set it up to be. They did a little bit of a double twist in that they sort of set it
Something
up
seemed
to
off
be
about-
Gamal in the beginning, but
They
then
did.
it turns out he was the bad guy, but not from the audience perspective.
But looking
from his people's perspective,
But
he was
then-
the bad guy.
I think looking back on a second viewing, it was kind of, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but at the same time, Alora did come off as kind of like, it's like there's something sinister about this person. I don't know.
Oh,
She
yeah.
seems like
She's
too
a
nice.
mysterious space
She's
lady.
mysterious. She seems like way nice. Is there something? And she keeps talking about how private their planet is, and
Oh,
it's like
yeah,
she keeps all these secrets. They're all keeping secrets.
It's a very mysterious.
So you're just
planet.
like, there's something going on. But yeah, it's just a matter of who done it to what, and it wasn't the oath coin. That didn't do it to nobody.
Who done it to what?
Yeah.
There's a lot of Star Trek stuff that there's like this planet that's like really got it going on, but there's like dark stuff.
Like a
beneath the
Return of the
surface.
Archons or something. Wasn't that like the basis for those movies where everyone, like the one night of the year, everyone kills each other.
Oh, right.
Oh,
They
yeah.
call it, I think it was like the Red Hour or whatever. It's been a million years since I saw
There's
that.
that
episode.
one. There's the TNG episode with like
TNG.
there's people with like the gardens and
Yeah, the sexy people.
Yeah,
That's talk about a
the
male
sexy-
gaze episode.
sexy
Yeah,
people don't fuck up the gardens or they're gonna kill you.
You want to kill Wesley with a little injection.
Wesley almost lost it.
We're like, it won't hurt. It'll just kill him.
We only have one rule.
That's don't make rules is our only
Step on
rule.
the flowers.
We never found out why that ship was being so aggressive at the beginning. I guess that the implication was they fought really hard for their cause, but it wasn't really quite clear. I guess they were willing to sacrifice their lives to protect, it was the Prospect 7 ship.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we
'cause
don't.
they were trying to get the boy.
Yeah, but they were like, but it was fun.
It was a shitty ship. They had no firepower.
Right, but they were still fighting anyways. They wouldn't back down. So I guess that's supposed to be a testament to how dedicated they were to this cause. I like when they shot him.
They were trying to stop a kid from getting hooked up to a machine.
Yeah, it's pretty noble. I like when they said to Pike, they were like, they shot Pike. That ship, they all shot Pike. Remember when they shot not Pike, but the Enterprise? Remember they did that? They shot the Enterprise.
What are you talking about?
You know when the Prospect
You're wording this very oddly.
the Prospect 7.
You're gesticulating with your fingers.
I am. When the Prospect 7, when they got up on the Prospect 7 and it was causing some shit the very first time, and then the Prospect 7 ship. That's not the Prospect 7. Okay, that ship.
Very confusing.
Okay, remember at the beginning of the episode, they come across this ship, and there's a distress call, and all this shit's happening, and the ship turns around.
I'm a bit distressed at the moment. I might say.
And then, the ship starts shooting all of its volley of photons at the Enterprise.
Totally,
and
yeah.
Pike just like gives this look like
It's like 0.2%.
1.21 gigawatts.
He was like damage. He's like, what the fuck? Like
Negligible.
He was negligible. He was almost like, what these
these
motherfuckers?
guys.
And that's when he said, it's always these small dogs that have something to prove or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was another good Pike reaction face. Pike has some good reaction faces.
Oh, there's a
when
lot
he's
of them
on
in
the
this, and I mean both humorous and horrifying. Like I
Yeah.
said, like when he pulled back the blanket on the corpse of the
Yeah.
dead child, the look on his face, Anson Mount's
man.
face was upsetting, and then they show the fucking body and you're like, oh my god, that is horrible, because I thought they were just going to show his face and be like, oh yeah, normally on a television show when there's the implication of the corpse of a child,
Yeah,
you don't
usually they
show
don't-
it, you
usually they
show
don't do
somebody's
that.
reaction to
Right,
it.
right.
And then they're like, there's the I was like, all right on schedule, there's the reaction. Oh my god. It's like, Jesus.
Yeah, we're sort of
Kinda
used to
Area
that.
51 shit.
We're sort of used to that idea that when kids die in shows or movies, like it usually happens off screen,
Yeah.
or like you said, they don't show.
But it was good because because I
forced you
think
to face it.
it made you fucking face
Yeah.
it, and it was
Oh,
and,
totally.
and it went into her
totally.
point about saying like, hey, at least we know what we're doing. You guys pretend
Dude.
to not. You ignore the suffering that goes on that in one way or another helps aid you to have that nice lifestyle.
Dude.
Again, message more for modern Earthlings as opposed to or contemporary
Modern
Earthlings rather than the
Earthlings.
Federation.
Dude.
But another factor of this show that I'm
Totally,
not seeing it discussed as much on the internet is the fact that Pike and Spock and the rest of the Enterprise crew,
Spike,
right? They're the ones that caused this kid to get in trouble.
Spork.
Right? And it's going back a little
Pork.
bit to what you were saying, Dan, about like, why were they the default was to help these people who said they needed help with this kid, and that these other people were bad guys and they were trying to kidnap the kid for a ransom.
Evil bad guy.
They just sort of took that all for granted. And I think for me, again, on the second watch is when I really noticed this, was the realization that the kid's cleverness that was portrayed earlier, right, where he's talking to Spock and saying he knows all this stuff about subspace radio waves,
made a little
and he made his own
subspace
subspace, and he said, I have my own frequency
He
that
did
I
that
like.
to doom himself.
That was fucked up.
He doomed himself, but not by himself, because him telling Spock that led Spock to be able to look for the clues.
Right.
So Spock found the kid. If Spock hadn't found the kid, right? If the kid hadn't broadcast the
You
signal,
mean when they found that kid in that room full of junk and human-sized suitcases? Like,
well, those were like the motion picture style like cargo containers is sort of scattered around.
Yeah, it was weird.
Lower deck style almost.
It was just this. It looked like this weird corner of the ship.
Those are like funny boxes.
It was.
right?
They were just sitting in a hallway, just like somebody.
On deck 17.
It like looked like a room.
Wharf
It's like
crushing boxes.
It's like, what do we do with this big weird thing? Just like shove it over in the end of deck 17.
Yeah, nobody gives a fuck about anything down there. But it is really upsetting when you think about the fact that the kid's cleverness to rewire the little machine within that cargo container in order to send the signal. Spock's cleverness, right? These are all attributes that we are taught to appreciate. The kid's cleverness, Spock's cleverness, and intuitiveness to figure this out, that he can scan the subspace radio waves. And
intuition?
Yes, his intuition or intuitiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I think both are valid.
Both are valid.
But it's upsetting when you realize that it's like, these are things that we prize in our Starfleet characters. Mm-hmm. And in this sense, it totally backfired.
Yeah.
Because all their skills and talents and their competence was utilized to further the goal of getting this kid plugged into a machine.
Right. They all doomed this kid.
Yeah. And granted, of course, they didn't realize it, but when you and you can get that with a single watch through of the episode.
Everyone's guilty.
But it really, really hit me on that second watch through of the episode. And it really makes you feel bad about the guilt that some of these characters are going to carry, including Pike. And with that added layer of complexity, which is they ended up having to play, they ended up playing a role in dooming this kid, certainly from their perspective. But at the same time, again, this dilemma, this philosophical dilemma about the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few, which has been touched upon obviously in Star Trek before, Star Trek 2 and all that stuff. Touched a little bit.
Heavily touched.
And granted, in Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3, Star Trek 4, of course, it turns out, they turn it on the head, and Kirk says Kirk says sometimes the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. But in this case, they didn't come to that conclusion. They just presented that case, and I liked it because the way they portrayed all the characters, the way they portrayed what happened to the kids, the fact that Alara was like, like you said, like you referenced earlier, is like, is he going to suffer? It's like, oh yeah, that's fucked up.
It was just so that
it's
moment,
super fucked up. He's going to suffer.
Me. I was like,
yeah, because they did all that, they set up this dilemma where it's very difficult to argue against their point, and while at the same time feeling it's super wrong. Feeling that we actually think it would be better for thousands of people to be in pain and have disease.
And that's what Pike's brief expression when she explained it to him.
It's like,
split second, he's like, well, and then he's like, fuck. He's like, no, fuck that. No, fuck that.
He chooses that, and you could make different arguments about the value of that. But it's, they're making a utilitarian argument. Others might say that's not the philosophy to follow. It's not what provides the greatest good in the world.
Yeah, it's more, like I said, it's more attempting to be predictive, because like it's not like in the moment we need to decide right now who's going to live and who's going to die. It's like based upon what we know about humanity, this is what we're going to need to do in order for our future to be good. It's like that, a whole Minority Report spin or whatever kind of deal, which I'm sure is based on something else. But you know what I'm saying?
Well, and the fact is if you
fascism, it's based on fascism.
If you take in the whole Star Trek milieu, humans do fucked up shit. The Klingons we made peace with. We, the Federation. The Federation made peace with the Klingons, even though the Klingons are still going around stabbing people and stuff. And the humans are like, oh, that's just their culture. It's like, you excuse it as their culture when there's a benefit to you. And I think that's the subtle thing that goes on right there. That you can excuse something if the benefit outweighs whatever moral problem you have with it,
right? Which is what we're
and if they have no benefit to you, then you're free to criticize them. And that there are analogs in the real world where people will be totally cool with country A, who is a strong ally but doing some fucked up shit, but will totally denigrate country B, which is also does similar horrible shit, but they don't have oil, or they don't have military protection.
They didn't. The Magellans didn't want to give up all their cool shit.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's a bunch of layers going on here, and I think a point I made maybe a few episodes back was that and I think this episode strengthens that point, that Strange New Worlds is on the one hand, it's doing the TOS style. Let's do some moral dilemmas. Let's have an optimistic Star Trek.
Let's do moral dilemmas. Let's do moral dilemmas. Let's do moral dilemmas.
And something plop.
Snack.
Get ourselves a snack.
But at the same time, what Strange New Worlds is
Actually
doing,
does work. Saying
what Strange New Worlds is doing that's different from TOS and TNG, and to a large degree Voyager, more similar to Deep Space Nine, is it's questioning. It's questioning the Federation. It's questioning the taken for granted values. It keeps coming up against these ideas of cultural relativism and the fact that different people do things differently.
I don't think those guys are going to get to join the Federation.
Maybe not, but guess what? If they happen to have like a bunch of dilithium, maybe they will.
Yeah,
if they start negotiating to give their medical technology to the Klingons, then the Federation will be like, okay, no, we'll be cool with you if you don't. We'll give you our own fresh kids. You want some fresh kids? Just don't give the Klingons any dilithium.
Fresh kids, yeah.
Right. So I really
maybe they'll take the Klingon.
I'm enjoying that aspect where, and I'm frankly shocked that they've been able to do this so consistently thus far over these 6 episodes, to varying degrees, of course. But they're threading this needle where at the same time it's optimistic, fun Star Trek, but with an undercurrent of the Federation isn't perfect, the captain isn't perfect. There are complicated things where there's no easy answer. And in this episode was the most acute example of you don't always win.
Strange.
The end of this episode is not like, oh, some magic thing came out and
he's like,
nobody wins.
Because Pike's like, I'm going to tell Starfleet on you. And
she's like,
go ahead.
She's like, who fucking cares, dude?
Yeah,
what are they going to do?
Yeah.
It's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Did you want to sing another song or?
No. I was going to talk about La'an and her rules of it's like the rules of acquisition.
Yes,
the
rules of security.
Pretty good.
Yeah, so there was lesson 1, which is a Rigelian tiger pounces with no warning.
You got to say it like Pike did with La'an's British accent.
I'm not going to even try. It's going to come up.
Warning. With a Rigelian tiger.
A Rigelian tiger pounces with no warning.
Pounces with no warning.
No.
Governor, no warning, Governor.
So last week
That's not what she said.
Last week it was the Slanican oysters, and this week it's the Rigelian tiger.
Yes.
Anyway,
Slanican oysters.
I wonder if there's a.
Yeah,
you're making me hungry.
I wonder if they have a Rigelian tiger king on Fedflix.
Fedflick? Oh, Federate. Oh, yeah. Hey.
Talk about a portmanteau. Am I right?
More
am
like
I right?
Portman, no.
Right.
I like that it's just. I like that it's the Tiger King, but it's just the Rigelian
It's
Tiger.
the Rigelian Tiger King. Otherwise, it's basically the same story.
Right, exactly. Lesson 2. There are no breaks in security because threats never take breaks, as Ortegas.
That was probably made up.
Recited
She was just making that up.
She was just being a smart ass.
Nah, that's real.
I think that was real.
Well, there was a lesson 2.5 in the it was one of those clips that is the unused clips. It's not an outtake, but it's a clip that they didn't use.
Where do you see these? You're making a joke. Where did you sit? Did you go on YouTube? Did you go on YouTube? What YouTube URL did you use?
I can't even remember what we were talking. What was number 2?
There are no breaks in security because threats never take breaks.
I was going to make a joke about there's no cats on Magellus. There are no cats in Magellus.
Wow, that would have been a long walk for that joke, but I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
We do what we can because this is an episode with many dead children and concepts surrounding around whether or not it's a great idea to torture and murder children in order to have floating
or
cities.
you could just hook up with some mysterious space lady and be kept in the dark for most of the episode.
Just so we're not too inside here, that was a quote from American Tail.
Yes, an American Tail.
American Tail, the original. One of the, before Fievel Goes
Don
West.
Bluth animation.
Yeah. Don Bluth did the animation for the Dragon's Lair games and the Space Ace games.
And American Tail is another great but upsetting story with analogies to the pogroms in Russia.
Yeah, there's some really upsetting stuff going on.
The No Cats in America is a rousing song that happens at the beginning of the episode. Turns out the song was not accurate. It's
plenty of
there are a lot of cats.
A huge chunk of the plot of American Tail is sort of interrogating the idea that the song "There Are No Cats in America" is inaccurate, and the streets are not in fact, paved with cheese.
Are you sure about that?
I am sure because I walk around the streets of America on a daily
You would
basis.
know because it would smell.
It would be more stinky.
Oh my
Did you ever
Lord.
see Little Monsters starring Fred Savage and Howie Mandel?
No.
No.
There's a really disturbing scene in that. Just so if you ever want to see that.
We're just listing disturbing
Because
scenes in
it's-
obscure media.
Yeah, it's like Little Monsters is this like
Because American Tail ain't that obscure.
it's a comedy for kids, but there's this really upsetting scene in there that was upsetting to me, anyways.
All
But
right. Next,
just no spoilers.
Are we just going
No
to
spoilers.
talk about what's upsetting?
Okay.
next,
yes.
Lon's next rule.
Lon's next rule is lesson 3. Let your tricorder do the investigating. And like
That's a good rule.
that's a good rule, and I like when they were on the wreckage of the ship and like going through, and Uhura was like pressing buttons, and then Lon got all pissed off. And
well, Uhura was.
She's
on
all feeling up on
the other episode with the engineer dude, and he was injured. Like she was all touching consoles.
Like
and
hot-
yeah,
and hot
figuring,
things.
figuring stuff out.
you know, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. She's like
Yeah.
she keeps trying to touch him.
So she was just continuing that, and then
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that because she was touching it, and this time instead of burning herself, Lon was basically like, "You're gonna burn all of us, you know, if you keep touching this stuff." And then she was just like, "Oh yeah, it was just a thing, no big deal." And she's like, "Well, your luck's gonna run out,"
Yeah.
and that's a good point. You know, that's a good thing. Someone can do something and it can seem like not a big deal, but it's like you never know that one time it is a really big fucking deal. So.
When it comes to security, it's a good attitude to have. I think another aspect of that scene that for me was really great is it's again the brilliant use the production people the production people the production people the people who are producing this
The people who are producing the penis and the poop.
that's the first penis in this
didn't-
episode.
I didn't even think about what I was saying before I said
Last
it.
episode, I accidentally said penis butter instead of peanut butter.
Oh, yeah.
But that was like right at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
It took us until now.
What?
Until we mentioned penis. And we talked all about like the male gaze and I did the boobs voice and everything.
Yeah.
But this is the first time penis has come up.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're backwards people.
Pretty good. But what I was
Pretty good.
we're getting better.
what I was trying to say was that the producers have done such a great job of both employing this brilliantly detailed production design, but on Strange New Worlds, they're also making things look a little bit more old-fashioned Star Trek.
Well,
and that
yeah.
ship
Like
is an
that-
example. The ship on the outside is this brilliant CGI, realistic with fires and stuff. And then when you see the inside and they're burning, into it. That's straight out of the TNG, Data and Worf cutting through a door and the door just like goes a clonk.
Well-
and then the whole camera rotating thing was nice and slow. And it called attention to the fact that the other thing they're doing on the show, they're locking down the cameras more.
Oh, so it's not making you sick anymore.
It's not
It's
making
not
it
all
sick.
over the fucking
and
place.
they're not doing a lot of handheld. And even when there's camera motion, it's slow pan over and stop on the character.
It's not just like
stop.
constantly in motion.
Speaking of the older show stuff, so I mentioned that. No, I had mentioned that when the first child, the first
Servant, first child servant.
when he was hiding out, or he got put in, or I think when he got put in that human-sized suitcase in the junk hallway.
He got beamed into a cargo container.
That cargo container looked
Human-sized suitcase. Come
It's
on.
like a
but like the way it looked like
Maybe it was an escape pod or something.
No, look, you were talking about how it looked old school, and
it
that
had
kind
like
of
a seat. It
that
had a seat
that had
inside.
looked old school because it had these sharp edges,
Yeah.
and it was all like weird,
It had that,
white,
it
and
had that
weird.
motion picture font.
It was looked like it was from TOS or something, basically. Which is to your point. I'm just helping you make your point.
It was
You
TOS.
helped me.
I
to no
help,
end.
even when I help make your point, you don't appreciate it.
No, I do appreciate it. Don't you see? I'm basking in it.
You're
Look at
being
me.
a weirdo.
No, see, my eyes are closed.
That's not what you're doing.
My eyes
I
are
know you
closed.
well
I'm all
enough.
like,
I know you well enough to know when you're deflecting.
See, I'm feeling the
I know
positive
him-
energy's coming my way.
I know Patrick. I know Patrick well enough to know when he's deflecting, and right now he's
No,
deflecting.
I'm absorbing
No,
it. Look,
you're doing the opposite absorbing.
look at my forehead. Check it out. Look at my forehead.
See, no, I'm not gonna look at your fucking forehead.
look, put it
No,
right in
You're
here.
pointing your finger at him and
Put it right
yeah,
in
I'm
here.
pointing my finger at him so you can see what I'm talking
Dan
about.
is pointing
Jesse?
his
Do you
finger
see
at
what
me
I'm- do you-
while pointedly not looking at me. He's purposely
Yeah,
not
he's
looking at me
looking at
because he
me.
doesn't want to look at my forehead where I'm absorbing all his positive vibes.
He's deflecting.
absorbing.
Deflecting. You're socially deflecting. Okay, lesson 4.
We've managed to laugh a lot for an episode that you really
Well,
focuses
we're
on
trying to.
Oh yeah, for dead children.
dead children. There's
Yeah.
all these dead children in
Dead
this
children.
episode.
So there was no lesson 4, no lesson 5. Lesson 6 was just your standard know when to bend the rules. That's always in the list somewhere.
Know
in
when
security.
to fold them, know when to hold them.
No, I don't think
Know
that's
when to, what's the next line?
Know when to
That's
walk
not the
away.
Know
same.
when to walk
No,
away.
that's not the same thing at all. What you're talking about is know when to cut your losses. This is when you're supposed to break the rules a little bit.
It's something about
Like,
counting your money when
It's-
you're sitting
did
at
you
the
ever
table.
see? Did you ever see the movie The Golden Child with
Of
Eddie
course.
Murphy? There was a part in that scene where they were telling him not to break the rules, and so he didn't break the rules, and he was like, "Oh, but sometimes you got to break the rules." You
The
know?
Golden Child is the reason why Eddie Murphy was not in Star Trek 4. He was originally supposed to play the contemporary
shit.
character in Star Trek 4. Now
He was originally
they
supposed to be in
changed it a lot.
Ghostbusters too.
The
Apparently.
they
contemporary
changed it quite a bit.
character?
Yeah, he was instead of the lady doctor.
Really?
the lady doctor.
Really?
The lady doctor.
It's not just the male gaze. That's
Wow.
just the male mind.
That would have been a completely different movie.
Yeah,
The woman was a
script,
doctor.
They went in a different direction with the script.
Wow.
Yeah.
I cannot operate on him. He
Because
is my
he's
son.
because the woman is a doctor.
Yeah.
They should remake that movie
With Eddie Murphy.
Fucking Murphy. Oh my god.
Well, like I said, Ghostbusters apparently was originally casting for Eddie.
Maybe
Murphy.
we can remake that movie. Can we do that?
No, I don't think so.
Can we get Eddie Murphy?
In that
Can we get an Eddie Murphy in person?
in that TNG episode, we did that. Did we do the TNG episode with the time traveler? You know, the 22nd.
Yeah, something
Max
like
Headroom.
that.
Max.
Yeah,
Max
I
Headroom.
think we did.
We did that, didn't we? On the
Max
podcast with the Max Headroom.
He was
we
in
did-
Orphan Black.
If we did,
And he was in Orphan. Yeah, Orphan Black's
if
great.
we didn't talk about the episode, we certainly referenced the
It
episode.
seems like I bet we talked about it. Audience, go back and look. You'll see.
Do it, audience. You do the work for us. Okay.
So
Now
you can go on the website. If you go to
Set us straight.
www.itsgotstartrek.com, you can sort by episode. You can go through all the TNG
So-
episodes and see if we've. But anyway, I was bringing that up because Robin Williams was supposed to play that character, but then something happened, so he couldn't play that character. So then they got Max Headroom.
So he was Patch Adams instead.
He was hungover.
Maybe he was Bicentennial. No, Bicentennial Man came later. I knew that, but I was just joking because I wanted to say Bicentennial
Yeah,
Man.
I know, because it's a fun thing to say.
Yeah. What dreams may come.
So, yeah, actually, I remember seeing that movie. It's whatever. It's fine. It's just fine. I don't know.
All right, your point number 7, because
so-
there's a controversy about number 7.
So when
I'm wondering if you're gonna bring up this controversy.
Look, I'm just saying.
I'm guessing that you are.
I'm not because okay, look,
It's a lexicographic controversy.
Okay, look. Okay, so they're talking to Gamal, right? And they're talking to Gamal, and then they're basically breaking it down.
All right.
And he's all like, "No, I didn't do anything wrong." And then La'an's like, "I think my promising young cadet just demonstrated lesson 7 of security on you," or it would be more like, "I think my promising young cadet just demonstrated lesson 7 of security on you." So she's like, She did security on you. It's like she said, she lesson 7 to your ass is what she said. She goes, she lesson 7 to your ass is what she did.
Yeah.
So she verbalized
And-
lesson
and
7. She said,
what
she's
did-
lesson
and-
7 on you.
And what did she say that lesson 7 normally was?
Leave no stone unturned.
No, yeah, but how did she normally have
normally
cadets
she
do that?
requires cadets to look under Mugatan breathing stones for that one.
All right, now here's the thing. Did you get that information from your ear? No. This is not a trick question. This is a true experiment because there's been some controversy here. Did you get that information through your ears or through the transcript or through the closed caption?
My theory is that the transcript is just the closed captions. But
In
I
either
could be
case,
wrong.
but is that how you got it?
Or
from your ears?
Well, from when I first watched it, I heard it and I caught something about breathing stones. I was like, what is this breathing stones? Do they drown these people and then force them to find their way out by finding breathing stones or something? And so so that's what I remember hearing. And then when I saw the closed captioning, it just filled it in a little bit more for me.
Did it say breathing stones in the closed captioning?
Yes,
though?
it
I
did.
don't know. I'm asking.
It did. And
All
in
right.
the transcript, it does too.
Here's why.
In the it says, I usually require cadets to look under the Mugatan breathing stones for that one. Yeah,
Here's
so-
why there's some controversy over this.
Okay.
Why?
Controversy?
Because some people heard, and apparently
Is this
the
like
transcript
is
says,
this like the green dress bluegrass or
yes, it's like
Green dress,
that meme where
bluegrass.
you either see a green dress or you hear bluegrass music. It's exactly like that meme. But quite honestly, it is similar because some people hear Mugatan breathing stones, which, by the way, the Mugato, we're familiar with a Mugato. which was also called a Gumato.
Oh,
The
you're asking how
the
I heard them.
Gamato.
Are you asking how I heard them pronounce it? Because I don't
No,
remember.
no,
how
no,
they
no,
pronounced
no.
it.
That's not the key thing. There's the Mugaton breathing stones, or what other people, including myself, heard because they thought it made more sense. Mugaton breeding stones. And the reason why we thought this would make more sense would be because of, for example, in lower decks, Mugatos or Gumatos
They kept saying it differently.
keep having sex with each other, and then there's a Mugato that's like rubbing his horn and watching the other one.
Right. That was the
So
other
they-
disturbing scene in Star
yeah.
Trek is when you see it jacking off his
Yeah,
horn.
that was a Mugato gaze. That was directed with a Mugato gaze.
a Mugaze toe.
Yeah, Mugato
It's a
gaze.
fugazi.
Fungili.
It was a fugazi.
Oh, Geordie LaForge likes to make fungili for
What was that? What was that?
for his hologram
What was Tony
girlfriend.
Soprano always eating? They were always eating some like
Gabagool.
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 Right? That's exactly it. Okay, so that's
So-
interesting. I never even considered that.
And so if it says it in the closed captionings, maybe it means
be
in the
wrong.
script, but it could be wrong because they have gotten things wrong in the closed
Yes,
captionings
they
before.
have. They have.
Because I don't know what a Mugaton breathing stone would be.
Well, that's why.
But a Mugaton breathing stone, my dirty little imagination can conjure up a few images.
Okay, so what I heard, you can bring up yours. Let me just say what I was.
I already
imagining.
brought it up.
You did. Okay.
My point is concluded.
But you didn't say what.
I'm passing the baton to you.
You said that there were some scenarios.
You may now make the
You
point.
said that there were some scenarios that you thought of that made more sense. You didn't mention.
I said
those
I could
scenarios.
imagine.
And I was wondering if you were. Now look, you're tricking me into letting you talk first.
No, I'm not tricking it. I thought it was sufficient to say that I had the facility to imagine Mugaton sex toy
see,
type stuff.
Okay, so here's the thing. I had a
Made of a rock.
So you don't have a specific scenario in mind.
like a rock dildo.
Yeah, but
If you insist on having me say it out loud.
and you just tricked me into letting you give your point first. But
Not
look,
intentionally.
How does
I
that
think
relate? How does that relate?
Thou doth tricketh thyself.
How does that? How does
Are
that?
you tricking yourself?
How does
Dana?
that? Why would that?
This guy's tricking himself out all over
Why
town.
would
Tricking
they?
himself.
Why would they have a space dildo as part of Lesson 7 though? That doesn't make any sense.
No, but it's funny, like the
perfect-
concept
makes
of a
perfect sense to me.
Mugaton breeding stone
Yeah.
conjures
Okay.
sort of
It's just
a myriad of images
Here-
that are interesting. A Mugaton breathing stone, I like you said, like what the fuck is a breathing
Okay,
stone?
this is a scenario. I'm glad you asked, Patrick, because
stick
this
it down
is-
the throat and it
this
helps you
is-
breathe or
no,
something?
This is a scenario I was talking about. Is
it like a gizzard but
No,
for the
let
lungs?
me tell you. No, they throw
Lung gizzard?
No, they go on the holodeck and they turn off the safety protocols and they throw them in this deep like lake. And when they tie rocks onto their feet, and so they can't get out of the lake, and so they're sitting there drowning, so they're supposed to be able to figure out how to breathe. But if they grab the Mugaton,
Do they hear the Sonic music? Like
But
when
they-
Sonic can't breathe, it's like dun 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 dun
No.
dun 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 dun
No,
dun dun
look,
dun.
I'm almost done. So they're in there and they can't.
I'm always fucking finished.
They can't. You're right. I'm almost finished. They're in there and they can't breathe. And so they need to breathe or they're going to die. So they find Mugaton breathing stones and they use those to breathe.
And how
that's
does that
they-
function? I mean, how does a breathing stone function? Does it have like a
lets
pocket of
you-
air in it?
Yeah, it lets you breathe.
Is it like a spongy stone that you suck on and
Is
air
it a-
comes
is
out?
it
I
a
mean,
tank?
it's
Is
not
it
the
a
craziest
scuba
thing.
How is the
tank?
pressure differential handled?
It
Is there
doesn't-
like a hole on the other
Why
side?
is the city floating over
Does
lava?
the water come in?
Why do they need a child to make city float over lava? It
That
doesn't
makes more
matter.
sense to me than a Mugaton
Oh, come
breathing
on,
stone.
get the fuck out of here. You are just
Get the fuck outta
You're
here.
pushing buttons now.
I'm not pushing buttons.
You are, because come on, it's not
Mayonnaise.
there are bubble like it happened in speaking of Sonic, how did you get air again? You ran into a bubble and fucking sucked in air.
I could buy a bubble. I'm just not a stone.
It's a stone that is able to produce some oxygen, and it like you put it on
chemical
you.
reaction.
What?
of some
Yeah,
sort.
and you stick it on you. I can't believe that this is the biggest problem you guys have with Star Trek right now, is this idea. That is so absurd. Okay, let's move on
It's
because
not a problem.
no, you guys are saying of anything that's ever been said, this is the most unreasonable thing ever.
What?
Let's move on because I can't. I know you're just fucking with me, but you're gonna insist that you're not, and I just need to pretend that you're fucking with me because like this is too much for me to comprehend right now.
All right, we'll agree to move along home. So any odds and ends, any knickknacks or doodads or tallywags, any nitpicks?
I've got a nitpick. When Pike goes when he's going up to that Kier dude who did the thing, and he pulls up his gun, he's like, "It's not on stun." It's like, why? Isn't that the point of stun?
I was a little unclear on that.
Why
too.
would you want to destroy that person?
Piker's just like, I'm going to be an asshole today.
Yeah, like that's what stun's for. Is to like take people out.
He
And
already tackled that dude.
if he had his gun on stun, he could have taken that dude out with him getting killed because
And even when she was held hostage,
because Laura got killed.
she would have just been stunned.
That was a little bit un-Pike.
Yeah,
it was weird.
Un-Pike.
It was sort of like similar to the coin thing. It didn't quite fully make sense. They were trying to create a dramatic tension where she ends up killing the guy, and I suppose they were intending for us to not be sure whether she killed the guy and it was some sort of ruse because she was still covering up some sinister plot. But it turns out from her perspective, there was no sinister plot at all. It was just, she was just doing what her culture did.
Right.
Ruefully, perhaps.
Rufio?
But doing it, yes, she was doing it rufioli, perhaps, but just doing what her cultural job function required.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a good nitpick.
Yeah. I liked when
Picking nits.
when they beamed away Gamal and the first servant beamed away and Pike goes to Kyle, he goes, "Who told you you could beam them down?" And it's like another example of poor Kyle. He keeps having to deal with people's
Kyle
shit.
keeps getting
That's
it.
why he's so
Keeps
mean.
yeah, that's why he's so mean.
That's why he's such a fucking piece
I
of shit.
eventually we got to have a Kyle focused episode or
Yeah,
something.
but
Just that references this or something.
But I on the one hand, yes, I do want Kyle focused episode.
But it is
on the
kinda
other
funny
hand,
to have
it's
the-
got to be the Morn thing. It's got to be
Right,
where like
yeah.
anytime we see Kyle, he's like the nicest, most helpful,
Right.
pleasant little guy there is. But like Morn, like you over the course of the series, you hear,
Yeah.
Pike will be like, Jesus, man, like,
yeah.
Kyle tore me a
That's
new
a good
asshole.
point. That's a good point. This show shows more space. This show shows more spacecraft movement than I'm used to seeing in Star Trek. I'll give you two examples. Like when,
2 examples.
like when one was from this episode when Enterprise was playing Enterprise was playing tug of war with the ship.
Yeah, it was pretty rad.
That was awesome, and you saw the ship was all like jerking around, all
it was
like,
exploded.
you don't usually see like quick movements like that. And the other time it happened was in the Gorn episode when that one Gorn ship was imploding.
Yes.
And it was like crumpling, like it was like a tin can. It was like,
Yeah.
and I'm
like
not
a tin can, like falling to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's a good analogy.
Totally.
It's apt. It's perfect.
Or a
so it's
submarine.
like I'm not used to seeing fine movements like that. Fine movements like this from
This show's
Super
got some-
fine.
they're kind of fun.
Fine.
Fine.
Is it accurate? Is it not?
You start
Super fun.
sort of in the middle of the Enterprise.
I don't know if it's
And
accurate.
then you just pan slowly up the Enterprise.
Yeah, and you see the
you look at
Enterprise satellite dish.
No,
This
no,
big
no, no.
dish.
Up to the top,
You only
back, out to the back.
only little boys care about the satellite dish. The real men,
is it nacelles?
they like the nacelles.
Yeah.
You just pan right up those nacelles.
So I don't know if this jerking around is realistic or not, but I don't care because it's kind of neat to look at. It's fun.
Visually
Yeah.
stunning.
Yeah.
Visually stunning. Although I will reiterate my point from earlier in this episode. Stronger visual cues about the whole city floating above lava. We see floating city stuff. Okay. I think part of what undermined that a little bit is they thought, oh yeah, we're showing all this floating city stuff, but they should have had Pike or somebody be like, holy shit, how do you keep your city floating? That's crazy. They should have called it out more.
And the music's all whimsical,
Yeah.
and it looks all just like great.
And you just didn't see enough of the lava. Like I wanted somebody,
that's
I wanted
true.
Pike to be walking along one of those paths that didn't have any fences and
right.
look down and be like, whoa, shit. And there's like some
right.
roiling lava.
I
like,
think even in the second viewing when they were talking about lava overflowing, I still hadn't put it together.
I had
by
to
then.
like squint my eyes. I had to squint.
Yeah, that is. They should have done that.
I didn't really get it until like there was just like a shot of the planet. It looked all red and shitty.
Yeah. And when they're down in the,
I thought it was
in
just
the-
going to be
in the
some
ro-
generic apocalyptic.
Well, in
shit
the
or something.
what you keep describing as the RoboCop room,
The RoboCop room.
more specifically, when you're down there, you see those like there's like glowing chains
Yeah.
or something that are like floating and holding up the city,
Yeah.
and they're all coming and being centralized on the throne, for lack of a better term, the throne where
those connect to the kid?
yeah, to the
Maybe
future.
somehow the
It's
kids-
connected to the future dead child.
The future dead husk child. Maybe that's how. Okay, so those things hold up all those things. So each one of those wires connects to a different chain that's
Yeah,
holding up
it
the
seems
city.
like it,
And so
yeah.
they need this kid to constantly make adjustments in the calculations to make
Do
sure.
you think
it doesn't
do
fall
you think
in
in the kid's mind it's like eternally playing that game? You know that game where it's like a wooden box and you have a marble maze
God.
and you have
Oh,
to you have to
no.
turn it and it
It's
can
like
go go on. It
labyrinth.
can go on 4 axes,
Oh,
and you just got to
God, yeah.
constantly be like balancing it to get
That
the
is
thing.
that would be suffering.
Maybe that's how he visualized it.
That
Maybe he
game-
interprets the data that way.
That game is the
It's
worst.
it certainly ain't the game from TNG that Wesley Crusher
Yeah,
rose
or
up
the
against,
game starring Michael Douglas and
where people were game.
what's his name?
That movie's awesome.
Although that
That's
way
what David Fincher is.
Wait, wasn't that where like that was where he gave his brother someone gave him a
Yes.
birthday present, right?
Yes.
There was some game.
Yeah.
Fucked up.
Yeah, it was fucked up. That's what it was called. The episode of TNG, though, right? The game was it
Yeah.
called that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They said neural
Get your organ.
we don't have to linger on this, but neural dampening device. They said neural dampening device. They didn't say neural damping device.
Question.
They said dampener.
Question for you all.
They
With
didn't
the
say
neural
dampener.
dampening.
They didn't say dampener in this episode.
Spock said dampener.
Did he?
Yeah, he said
No,
dampener.
he said neural dampening device.
Neural dampener.
Do you have
no,
the
he said-
question I have, because I don't have an answer? Maybe
you're
maybe
wait.
one of you all have an answer.
Wait, Patrick, I gotta interrupt you. You're right.
You
It says,
got to.
My analysis indicates it is a kind of neural dampener.
Yes.
So here's
And then
here's a question
I
about
and they
this.
had a
I
neural,
listened.
and it's why associates had a neural dampening device.
So
okay,
the
my bad.
The father said that the purpose of the dampener was to make it so he would no longer be able to fulfill the function as this first servant. I initially heard that. I'm like, all right, I got it. Except when I thought about it, I was like, wait, did that mean that was permanent? Or like that's what I didn't understand, because he's like, like if they
just take the hat off, then it would go.
well, because my initial assumption was, okay, they put that on and it helps disguise him, like it makes it hard to scan him or track him or something. I thought maybe something like that. Then he was like, no, it's to make it so he can't fulfill the purpose. It's like, okay, but like if they got a hold of the kid, wouldn't they just take it off? And then,
right, exactly.
So,
right.
so the
That's a good
implication,
point.
because of that, the implication is that it's going to do some sort of permanent thing, or maybe become permanently attached to the kid. I don't know. It seemed like it was going to permanently.
They weren't clear on that either.
It was unclear.
The long and the
whole
short of
thing.
it is a subtle potential result of
At
this,
the end of the day,
at the end of the day,
which they did say in this episode, they said
yes, at the
Lon
end of
said
the
that.
day, it could mean that there was never going to be an ideal scenario for this child. He was either going to become a zombie running that thing, or he was going to be permanently mentally
I mean,
incapacitated,
that thing just it
so
looked
as
like,
to not do that.
It looked like it was. It didn't look like something that permanently I mean, I don't know. What
We
it's
just don't
supposed
know.
to- we
I just don't know
Yeah.
because, again,
Yeah, right.
it's like, okay, you put the thing on
But
the
that
thing,
raises
and they're
it-
like, oh, you can't do the job now.
That-
And then it's like, oh, well, we'll just take it off
you
of him.
know,
right?
right. They should have spent some more time on that, though. You're right, because then that would present a different sort of thing to think about. Is it worth
Yes.
doing this, giving permanent brain damage to a child?
Yeah.
And if it meant they didn't have to do this, so that would if they were more specific about that. That would be an interesting thing to think about. But but as it is,
Prince
they didn't let us
Abubu?
know.
Ababwa.
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 Yeah. Speaking of Kamal, he seemed really dejected after he
Yeah.
found out his kid was made.
Yeah.
He's like, he made it there, and at that point, it's
He's
like
all fucking-
he's like. You can't scream and yell at that point. He just sat down.
Yeah.
And he was just like, "Dag, yo."
Yeah.
Like,
And then he decides to go
Dag,
try to help
yo.
out whoever the next kid is by going hang out with the Prospect 7 folks.
yeah.
So, all right. Cool. Well, I think that does it for us this week then, probably, yeah. So,
I think it's been some Star Trek.
it has
been
it
some
has,
Star Trek.
it has been Star Trek. Next week,
Really disturbing episode.
Yeah,
But they
it was a
were-
real
it
fucking
was really
thing.
effective in that
We
way.
made it through.
well, because last episode was
Yeah.
all goofy and fun. And,
Yeah, right. That's a good point.
But, and the thing is the previous episode was all intense submarine warfare, and then so last episode was, oh, nice, relax
like
a little,
a-
fix the Enterprise. This episode's just dead children.
It's like a sonata. Isn't the second movement in a sonata? There's the first movement, second movement, third movement, and one of them's always all slow, and then the next one's all fast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
But next week's episode, on our continuing weekly coverage of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, it's called the Serene Squall. The Serene Squall. Makes me think of a storm, but a serene storm.
El mundo nuevo extraña.
What is that? Is that a translation of the Serene Squall?
The-
It doesn't
the-
sound like it. It
no.
sounds like you said the New World.
The New World.
I said the strange new world.
Oh, is Estrangia?
Extraña.
Aranjas?
No, araña is spider. Araña is spider.
No, what
is
isn't it
extraña.
Aranjas? Isn't it like oranges?
It's orange.
No, that's naranja.
That's no.
Oh, naranja. Well, naranja is like French or something. It's like orange. In English, it's like orange. In every other language, it's some variation of like naranja or aranja or oranja.
Not to be mistaken with
Horchata.
bananas. Wait, bananas are
Bananas
naranja.
Foster? You talking about Bananas
Wait a
Foster? The
second.
dessert
What about
Bananas Foster?
trombone?
Trombone. It's just trombone.
Trombone. Yeah, it's trombone.
Banana in Spanish
Okay,
is
you look that up.
plátano.
I'll start the end of the show bits. So
Let's end
next
this,
week
Jen.
it's the Serene Squall, Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. This is It's Got Star Trek. On social media, we're at It's Got Star Trek. That's the @ symbol and the words It's Got Star Trek. No spaces. You knew that. Feedback at itsgotstartrek.com, www.itsgotstartrek.com. Facebook, I'm just saying things now. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
Apple Podcast.
Yeah, we're on Apple
Sorry, it's
Podcasts. We're on Stitcher.
It's extraño. Extraño is this.
Extraneous.
Yes, El Mundo Nuevo Extraño.
Yeah, except I don't know if I have the order of words right.
Most likely not. Well, Jesse's all
Excuse
set.
me.
Jesse's ready to go.
Excuse
Yeah, so all the podcast players and all that other stuff. Tell your friends.
We're the real podcast players right here. It's got Star Trek every year.
Yeah, we're real.
Year after year.
Year after year. That would have been so much better. Because that just made it seem like we do it once a year.
Maybe next week you can
Maybe
improve
next year.
upon that. Improve upon that. All right. Well,
Okay.
that does it over us. We'll talk to you next week. Yeah, it's just pan slowly to the left. Pan over and then look at Dan. Oh, look at Dan.
I don't know if I feel good about this.
Look at Dan. Yeah, look at Dan finishing the podcast.
I don't feel good about this at all.
Look
at that guy.
He's all ready to
He's
go.
got a T-shirt.
I want you to stop.
He's like, I want to take my headphones off. Relax.
My ears are itching.
man.
All right, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Your new uniform is very yellow.
Oh, it's gold, technically, because I'm a captain. So,
Well, on behalf of Mugatos, we thank you for your help, Captain Pike.
this is my number one. Lieutenant Commander Una Chin Riley.
Allow me to take you to the ready room to debrief.